welcome to the Arsenal show. We are live and we have, as you can see, a full house tonight. We're joined by our regulars, Steve K and Jerome Marks, and we've got a special guest in tonight. It's Kris from a Bergkamp Wonderland and French Football Weekly. How you doing, Kris?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm good. I have to say, there is a confession. I think he was one of the first people I followed when I came to Twitter years ago.
Years
ago. Yeah, I think I remember you. Was you playing football as well?
I ran a Sunday League team. Yeah.
Yes. It was definitely you. You and Kris Davison was one of my first. So yeah,
Fantastic.
It's an honour to have you on the pod. About 10 years later.
Pleasure to be here, my friend. Yeah, thank you for the invite.
Thank you very much. And how are you doing? How are you doing, Steve?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Yeah, very good. A little bit disappointed after the result, but yeah. Apart from that, very good, mate. Very good.
All right. Don't worry, we'll be getting onto that in a minute. And Jerome Marks, how you doing, Jerome?
Yeah, fine. I've recently started listening to Bergkamp Wonderland again. I listened to it years and years ago. It seems like a lifetime ago. Anyway, maybe like 8 or 9 years ago, perhaps. And then started listening to it recently. So it's good to share this tonight.
It's only good when I'm on, mate. That's the truth.
Modesty. You are in.
Well, we didn't want to say.
Hi, kids. We're a great team.
Yeah. You have to say that, Kris, don't you? You have to say that. You always have to put that bit at the end. Yeah, we're a good team, though.
Of course. Before we go on, please, everyone who's watching, thank you for joining us tonight. Hit that like and subscribe if you are new to the page. If you're watching on Twitter, come over to YouTube. Give us a follow on KS1 TV and hit that like and subscribe as well. All right, we've got plenty to tuck into tonight. First and foremost, the Brighton game. Now, the dust has settled on the Brighton game. There was a bit of disappointment. Some people left slightly underwhelmed after the North London derby and the hype that was going around there, and then was left with a 0-0 draw against Brighton. We're going to go to you, Kris, first. What was your feelings after the Brighton games, and has it changed since?
Good question. It hasn't changed since, and I think my thoughts at the time were, thank God that's done. It was a little bit like that sort of after the Lord Mayor's show. You know, you know how it is. You go out on a Saturday night, you have a great night, you come home with a greasy kebab and it tastes wonderful, and then the morning after you've got some left over and you go, oh, I'll have a bit of it, and you go, oh no. And if the North London derby was the kebab and the night out, then Brighton away was the remnants in the microwave the next morning. Which that's how I sort of
great
saw it.
Analogy.
Yeah.
It was, it wasn't a pleasant watch. I mean, there's some positives, don't get me wrong. Another clean sheet. Ramsdale probably didn't have his best night. I think he admitted that, but he made a top save at the end. Gabriel has got a couple of new veneers, which is nice for him.
I know. He needs to have a word with his dentist because they keep on falling out, don't they?
It really does, yeah.
What's going on?
But yeah, I mean, there were some positives. I think we'll probably come on to it later on. The attack is a worry. Definitely, a few things really worried me about that. And the midfield, it just didn't click, did it? And I think, listened to a couple of podcasts this week, and quite a few have said the same. Some of our players are not above criticism, no matter how much we love them. Sometimes they just might need a rest. I'm sure you know who I'm referring to there. And sometimes you just got to look at these games and say, all right, we've got out, we haven't been beaten, we move forward. It is a bit disappointing. There's no denying that. And myself, as a long-suffering Arsenal fan of 25 plus years, I still every time I tune in, I want to remember the good old days, and I have to rein my own thoughts in and go, we're a mid-table side now, and that was a mid-table result.
Wow, what a reality check that was! I mean, finished off with we're a mid-table side. That's a mid-table result. I can't even argue. That's what hurts the most. One quick question before I go to Steve. Are you a little bit worried considering that's not far off of what our best starting 11 is?
I mean, I'm always worried, to be honest, because I've never been a manager in, manager out type of person throughout all the years of watching football.
No.
I'm very much let's support what we've got and let's see where it shakes out. But I do have some concerns about sort of the process, and indeed some of Mikel Arteta's sort of choices, tactical input. There's a few things that just still worry me. And even though we were brilliant against Spurs, at no point did I sit there and went, okay, well, that's that sorted. We'll be fine. Here comes the title. That was a great day, and he got everything spot on there, and he deserves a lot of credit. But these are the games where I do look at it and I go, was there a plan B? Is there something we can build on? So I don't think I sort of worry necessarily. But there is just that element of after the Lord Mayor's show, and if we are going to be a side that goes back from mid-table to top 6 / top 4, you have to say, we need to be winning more of these games than we're drawing or losing, which that's a bit of a running theme at the moment. Yeah,
definitely. Steve, has anything changed from your feelings on Saturday?
No. My feelings, like Kris, they haven't changed. Like Kris, I'm not someone who calls for managers' heads, so I'd like to see Arteta as well as fans, get on his side for the rest of the season. What worried me about the game against Brighton wasn't so much the 0-0 draw. It was the performance of certain players. I mean, and Kris has already alluded to one of them. There was a couple more. But what worried me was I didn't want to see that we've gone and played Spurs in a derby. We've all stepped up. Arsenal, they're all up for it. And then we've gone for Brighton and we've sort of said, nah, that game's over with. Now we're at Brighton. Now we'll just sort of, plod around and, not be to the standard we was against Spurs. And they wasn't. There were certain players that was. There was some very good performances against Brighton. Tomiyasu probably got a wake-up call for his, from the way Cucurella sort of pretty much took him to the cleaners. But I'm sure that Tomiyasu is going to be fine. The big worry, obviously, for me was Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. If that's who Kris is alluding to, I do think he possibly could be brought out and maybe even bring in a false 9, because it's hard to see who you would bring in to replace him. But we've never gone that false 9. Maybe we should try it because I didn't like his attitude against Brighton. I liked his attitude against Spurs, but that worries me even more. The fact that he seemed to just, want to get up for the big games, wants to get up in front of our own crowd. And when he goes away, he's not really that bothered. And with the fact he had an absolutely awful headband on, I still can't get over that. So, but yeah, nothing's changed. There were some good performances. There was a few bad ones. So we really need a win in the next one.
Jerome, is it a worry for you? Is the dust has settled? Is there any change? Is there a worry the way Arsenal played in that game, or do you think it's just a one-off?
No, I don't think it's a one-off. We've seen bad / averages performance a lot over the last few years. As Steve said, it's easy to get up for Spurs at home when you got all your fans behind you. I think we've got to give Brighton a bit of credit. I think they played particularly well, even without probably their best player. The worry for me is, like you said, that's pretty much our strongest team. So it's not as if we can bring in better players than what we had out against Brighton. Maybe you can make a few changes. You were talking about Aubameyang there. Unfortunately, the options apart from Aubameyang aren't the greatest. So that, I think, plays a part into why he does pick Aubameyang, because maybe he doesn't fully trust Lacazette or Martinelli or obviously Balogun way down the pecking order. But this is where Arteta earns his crust, and he's supposed to be this fantastic coach. He's got some, he's got his own players now. So let's see how good this coach is. I think he took quite a while on Saturday to make changes because we could see that certain things weren't working. Odegaard was just non-existent. Not his fault, but the ball was just bypassing him. I think I saw something he only made about 16 or 17 passes the whole game.
Sorry, go on.
I'd say when you've got Odegaard on the pitch, that's the player you want him to have a lot of the ball. Bit like Partey, you want those players involved, and if he's only making 16 passes, then you might as well not be there.
But do you think that might have been something that Brighton knew was going to happen? They knew that for Arsenal to tick, Odegaard's got to be ticking. Do you not think they might have nullified that?
Yeah, possibly, but then that's up to the manager and the coaching staff to come up with ways around that. It's obvious that the opposition are going to try and stop your best players from playing. That's probably what they work on all week. So you've got to be clever and smart and come up with ways of getting around that. But like I said initially, fair play to Brighton. They were very good. And result, obviously we all want to see good performances because, like Kris said, we've been brought up on watching brilliant performances. Mm-hmm. But I think it's one of those where the result was fine, not great, but it was okay. But I think as fans now, we just want to see good performances. That's the worry, because if you're not consistent with your performances, you're probably not going to be consistent with your results. So as a sign going forward, that's what you want to see is the performances. So I think if the performances are good, I think the results will come from that.
True, very true. Kris, we saw Arsenal didn't have many chances, but is there any time in the game where you thought they could have nicked it? They could have had a cheeky win, but didn't quite make the right decision?
Yeah, I mean, the chance that immediately jumps to mind is Emile Smith-Rowe's opportunity, I would say. And there's a little bit going around at the moment. It's like, should he squared it? Should he have passed it? I mean, I just personally thought he should have been showed a bit more conviction and drilled it for the far corner. But that said, it's kind of a striker's finish from that angle, and he's not a player who's sort of fully refined in front of goal at this stage. My kind of bigger worry on the night, I mean, Aubameyang's chance. Well, he had a couple of opportunities, didn't he? The one that was clear when he was offside, that worried me a bit. I'm not going to lie, because although it was offside and he clearly, sort of pulled up a little bit, I don't think he pulled up before he got kind of stopped by the keeper, and he never looked really convincing to me. And
no,
I don't know. I can't put my finger on what it is with Alba. I don't doubt his commitment. I will say that had Barcelona not been an absolute mess of a club and put some money up in the summer, I think he probably would have quite happily wandered off into the sunset. But, and that's not to knock the player. I just think that maybe after last season, he might have looked at it and gone, actually, I could do with a bit of a fresh start. But, his form does worry me. And it's not just his form. It's the lack of... It's the lack of backup that you touched on earlier on, and that goes with the chances. Those people who know me from ABW will know I'm a huge Alexandre Lacazette fan. But he's a player who needs rhythm. He's not a player you can just bring on for 10, 15 minutes here and there and he'll get you a goal. Yeah, he might get you the goal here and there in literal terms, but he's not a consistent substitute. He's a player who needs rhythm in games, and he's not going to get that without the midweek games. Balogun, I think, is ready, but clearly, based on one game, Arteta doesn't think that anymore. Eddie Nketiah, we know what we're going to get with Eddie. He'll probably get you 5 or 6 goals a season, but we haven't seen much else on a consistent basis. And there isn't really any other options. Martinelli seems to be, I don't know if he paints the lines these days. I mean, I don't know what he does.
Do you see him as a striker or do you see him as a forward left?
I don't see him as a striker, I'll be honest, but I do see him as a striking option. And I think sometimes sort of, going back into the Ferguson or Wenger days, players would be thrown into positions and they'd make a difference because they were just quality players. Yeah. And I think the Chelsea game proved that with Martinelli. You can put him anywhere, right, left or central, and he'll provide a threat. But at the moment, he's not getting a look in. So to sort of answer the original question, I am a bit worried about the chance creation. And I'm even more worried that the few chances we are making, we're not necessarily taking, aside from the North London derby. What is it? A 1-0, a 1-0, and now a 0-0, and then take away the other 2 results or 3 results at the start of the season. It's a bit of a concern.
Yeah. With regards to Aubameyang, I know a lot was made of he's signed his contract and he's kind of dropped off since then, which I can't really believe in. But has anyone really thought about the fact that it might just be he's getting older and he's just not as good as what he used to be? So it might just be a bit of that.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, there is an element because he's not a player who's really suffered a particular bout of injuries, and we know what he went through last season with the personal off the pitch problems, the issue with the malaria. I don't think all this travelling does him that great, to be honest. I don't think he's a player who, he always seems to look rusty when he comes back from international duty. And I know other African players go to far-flung nations, but everybody gets affected differently. And with Albert, it seems that it hits him quite hard travel-wise. It doesn't help when you have to sleep on an airport floor, of course. For me, he's a player that thrives on the love. When the crowd's behind him and everything's going well, he will score goals. When things are not particularly going your way, a rainy night in Brighton with limited supply, for me, is just not the night you want Albert up front. You want a, dare I say it, an Olivier Giroud type of player, somebody who's going to work the nut off and be available for the long balls. And, we're pumping, Aaron Ramsdale's kicking it long to 5'9" Bukayo Saka. I mean, what's the point of that? And he's doing that because Aubameyang can't make it stick. So, it's... I think he'll be fine this season in terms of his goal output, but I can't help but think, could we get a bit more out of him if we develop the system behind him better, if we got the supply to him a bit better, and maybe just if he made slightly better runs at times. I do think sometimes he switches off in games, which is a bit of a worry.
100%. So do you think that Laka can play with Aubameyang and that would make it any better? Someone to hold up the ball a bit more, but that would mean Aubameyang going back on the left.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the only way you get the best out of the two together is if you play a front two, and we're never going to do that. I mean, Aubameyang can do a job wide left, but he's not a wide left. He doesn't defend. Yeah. I'm not saying he doesn't work hard. He does, but there's a big difference between working hard and actually defending. Ask Sayed Kolasinac about that. You've got to, and you want Alba through the middle because that's what he is. He's a centre forward. He can play wide left, no issue. But if you want to get best out of Lacazette, you deploy him either as an out-and-out number 9 with what he had at Lyon, a Fekir type, or an Odegaard, in our case, type behind him. And then you leave Aubameyang out, which is, silly on his money, or you play him as an out-and-out 2. And then, of course, you've got nobody in midfield behind him. So I think we're stuck with these two as a problem until the summer when probably one, if not both, end up moving on.
Yeah, definitely. Steve, the lack of goals. None in the first 3. 1 against Burnley, 1 against Norwich. Yes, the North London derby at 0-0 against Brighton. What do Arsenal go from here? They're struggling to score. There hasn't been any sort of goals coming from midfield since probably Ramsey and Cazorla. What do Arsenal do?
This is a massive worry, and we literally haven't got nobody who score goals. You've just mentioned it there. Midfield players, where a lot of the teams, at least they pick up 10, 12 goals a season, 8 goals a season. Our midfielders don't do that. I mean, Smith Rowe's his finishing has got to improve. He's got to get more goals. Even Saka's got to get a few more. More importantly at the moment, because just Obba's not on it. He's not scoring. And if he ain't scoring, you just asked, where do the goals come from if Aubameyang is not scoring the goals? They're not on the bench. Lacazette might get 5. And the midfield players are just not doing it. I think the way Arsenal should be playing is with 2 forwards at the moment. Because I just think that you can't rely on Aubameyang. Even if Aubameyang's smashing it, even if he's knocking in 20 goals a season, even if he's turning it on every game of the week, our midfielders have still got to score us goals for us to have a chance of getting in Europe this year. And that's a big problem going ahead. Pepe don't get enough. Saka don't get enough. Odegaard don't get any. Smith Rowe will pop up every now and then. Aubameyang's not scoring. what do you do? And that's why I think January is important. I seriously think with January, we've got to go and get someone. There's some strikers there. Okay, people's going to say, well, we'll wait till June. We'll get them in the summer. I don't think Arsenal can afford to wait until the summer to get a goal scorer. Arsenal just got to look at the fact now that we have not got no players who can score goals. And our main goal scorer is not on it. He seems to have lost pace. I think that seems to be the main thing with Aubameyang at the moment. The ball that was played through to him that Kris mentioned, he was just the defender was just catching him up step by step, and in the end, you know, he just got nervous and he just is more or less ran into the goalkeeper. Mm-hmm. That's the worry for me with Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. His pace seems to have gone, and I think the only answer is, as far as goals are concerned, is either you stick someone up front with Aubameyang, which is going to be someone who Arteta don't fancy, which is going to be a Balogun or it's going to be a Martinelli. But it's obvious to us that he doesn't fancy him, those players. Mm-hmm. Or January we've got to go in, and even if it's going in and getting a Luis Suarez or something, you know, for 20 million, you know, and bring him in, you know, all right, it'll go for nothing in the summer. So pay 20 million, because one signing could get us in Europe. We can't afford to have another season out of at least, I mean, how bad it is now, we're saying we can't afford to have another season out of the Europa League. This is where we are. Goal score is massively important. And January for me is the main thing that we've got to do. We've got to go and get someone.
Jerome, Nicolas Pepe contributed to 21 goals last season in 47 games. Do you think that more could be got out of him?
He's such a what's the word? I don't know the exact word for it, but he's a bit infuriating watching Pepe play, because he's got so much ability, more than he can do things that a lot of our players can't. Mm-hmm. But like you said, his goals and assists, the numbers, they're not bad. It's just all the other stuff. It's all the work sort of away from their area. He's which is where he needs to improve. He picks up the ball, 40 yards out. He's not dangerous at all. But when he's in and around the box, he can make something happen. The trouble with Pepe is, if you play him, you're going to have to leave one of probably Smith Rowe or Saka out. And Saka's, he's basically first name on the team sheet, isn't he? And Smith Rowe is massively important for how we play.
But Smith Rowe needs, I know it's early doors, and since I said about Smith Rowe needing to score more goals, he scored 2. So I can't really say anything about him right now.
With the goals that you were talking about and goals for midfield, you're relying a lot on the kids to score. And normally, unless you're absolutely elite, people start scoring goals unless they're a striker or absolutely elite attacking midfielders, not until like later on in their career. It's a bit like Ramsey. I think Wenger notoriously said, Ramsey didn't score a lot of goals initially, and then he said once he starts scoring, like, he won't stop. And he managed to score a lot of goals for us, Ramsey. But that was like later on in his career, not until his like mid-20s. Mm-hmm. And so you're relying on Saka, Smith Rowe and Odegaard to score you goals, and they're just not going to do it this season. I think it's a short-term problem, because Lacazette will probably be gone. I know Kris likes him, but Lacazette will probably be gone in the summer. Aubameyang is only going to be with us maximum one more season after this. So it's not as if it's a problem that's with us for the next few years, but it's certainly an issue for this season. And Pepe is someone that can score goals, but I'm just not sure if I don't know if he offers enough apart from his goals. But it sounds weird saying that, because at the end of the day, you want someone to score you goals, don't you? That's where it counts.
Kris,
sorry, mate. I'd just like to ask Kris, against Burnley. Kris, we played Martin Odegaard in the number 8 position alongside Thomas Partey. Do you feel that's something that Arsenal can do? That way, what Jerome was alluding to when he said that one of Saka or Emil Smith-Rowe would have to be dropped. They wouldn't if they went to that system. Now, we've already tried it. I thought it worked pretty well. How do you feel about that, Kris?
I think my one worry with that is it's very open. I mean, Odegaard works hard, and he's not the sort of player that he's not afraid to put his foot in. There's a bit of Rosicky about him that I quite like. He's a proper workhorse, and he's not afraid to do the graft to get the reward from his work. But I think you need two proper sort of, if not defensive midfielders, you need one who can kind of destroy and one who can deep lie play make. And that's where you could arguably say that you could put Odegaard alongside Partey. But the problem is, a lot of people think that Partey is a defensive midfielder, and he's just simply not. He's more of the creative element, and that's why, God love him, a certain Swiss gentleman is still getting games in the centre of the park, less said the better, because he is the defensive he is the defensive midfielder. So Partey has that license to play those long raking passes. He has the opportunity to break forward. He has the opportunity to blaze the ball over the bar from 25 yards every game.
It'll go in one day.
It will, won't it? Yeah, probably when we least expect it. But you kind of need somebody properly with a full defensive bone, and if you're gonna have Odegaard deep, you have to say to Partey, you've got to sit, and that's not his best game. And I think it leaves us really open playing, essentially two out and out wingers plus a number 10 and a centre forward. This is a bit controversial, and it will probably upset a few people, but what the hell? I don't think there's any harm in rotating the likes of Saka and Smith-Rowe. Saka is played. He's had a whole summer. He took the weight of a nation on his shoulders, and we all know what happened after that, which is still despicable. He's a young lad. He's going to need a break. He's going to need a rest. Smith-Rowe, sure, he got the number 10 shirt, but this is a player who we were sort of comparing with the likes of what we're doing with Charlie Pentino at the moment. He was a young up-and-coming player we wanted to see more of in the Europa League. And now all of a sudden we're supposed to build our team around him. That's a lot of pressure for a young lad. And I don't see any reason why you can't say to Odegaard and Saka, look, whatever happens, you guys are the future. You know that. You sign long-term deals. Right now, you're going to play 2 in 5, 2 in 4, whatever it might be, 3 in 6. And then you say to Pepe or the likes of that sort of a player, you come in and fill the gaps. If you're playing at home to, it's always Burnley, isn't it? You always think Burnley. But if you're playing at home to Burnley or Norwich or Watford at the moment, you can probably say, do you know what? Let's go balls to the wall and stick everybody and have a more attacking midfield. But you simply can't do that against anybody, I would say, top 10 downwards, because you're going to get taken apart. And a team like Brentford, for example, who maybe aren't, a top 10 team, but on their night with the crowd behind them are going to look at that and go, this team ain't got much defence. And Ben White and Gabriel have been brilliant, but, it's been 5 games? If we start shipping goals again, you watch everybody turn and say, why haven't we got a defensive midfielder? And then Arteta will be hung out to dry for playing too much offensive football. We just need to get a tune out of the actual attacking players we've got and work to our strengths. And this is where I am going to be harsh on Arteta, he just needs to take the reins off a bit. He has to let these players express themselves and stop micromanaging the hell out of it.
Yes, I agree. It's something that I didn't really cotton on to early doors, and I actually kind of embraced a little bit, because I remember watching early Arsenal training and seeing Lacazette say to Arteta, "Can we flick?" And Arteta said, "No flicks. Hold it up, pass the way you're facing." And at that time, I was like, I feel like Arsenal need that, because they need a bit of someone just to take it back to basics. Because I found we were starting to get sloppy. But it seems like it's gone too far. It's funny enough, we won the FA Cup that year, and then since then it's gone less goals and less, and it seems like it's gone more rigid.
But how did we win that FA Cup? Everybody forgets.
Defensively.
Exactly. Brilliant. We won the trophy. Fantastic. But we got carried by one striker. Realistically, he carried us. Yeah. And we parked the bus. We stuck as many players behind the ball as we could. We relied on on the wide players for pace. We relied on the breakout ball and the quick counter attacks. And everyone always the thing that's fired back at you is, oh yeah, but remember that goal against was it Man City, or it was Man City, where we sort of played our way out from the back and played our way all the way through.
Yeah.
That's fine, but that happened once in 6 months. Like, every rainstorm has a burst of sunlight. If unless you're doing it every week, you can't rely on that one moment every time. So we won a trophy. It was fantastic, but in the nicest possible way. I couldn't have sat through a season of us playing like that again. I'd rather watch my local team.
One more question before we move on to your specialist subject, like it's mastermind. Do you think Arsenal need to go for a different style of striker when they do finally move on, as the Lacazette Aubameyang type isn't quite hitting it?
Yeah, I think where do you unpack that? The problem is Aubameyang's 31 now, I want to say. Lacazette's 33, 32, 33. They're both up there in age, put it that way. We have got a massive problem coming up on the rails in that we realistically need to shift probably 2 of the 3 next summer. And when I say the 3, I'm talking about another player in the forward line, which, let's be honest, is likely to be Nketiah, if he can reduce his demands of what he's going to be paid. Balogun probably needs a loan because he needs to play football. Yeah. So you're essentially saying of those four actual strikers, if you pick Martinelli as a winger, you realistically need to go out and go and buy a marquee centre forward. That doesn't need to be somebody who's 40, 50, 60 million, but it needs to be somebody who's got a bit of clout, a bit of, a name to them, a bit of a history of goal scoring. The best way I can sort of describe it as what we need right now, and we didn't go and get in the summer, is look at what Inter Milan did with Edin Dzeko. Is Edin Dzeko the world's greatest striker? No. Has he ever been? No. But what's he doing at Inter Milan? Scoring goals. Because he's got a skill set. He was cheap, and Inter Milan are champions of Italy. They could have gone out and pushed for higher rated strikers, bigger names, but they've got Martinez, who they build around, and they wanted a player who they could play off him as a secondary option. We don't have that type of striker. We don't have a Giroud, and we don't have an Edin Dzeko. And I'm not saying we should have gone for Dzeko, by the way, but we need. I always say to Danny on our podcast, we need like a Davor Suker, an experienced centre forward who's going to come in and play, Sylvain Wiltord, even a 15 to 20 game a season striker who knows his role, who will play when it's required. If he's on form, he stays in the side and he does a job. And then you go out and buy the marquee striker. I'll leave you with this question to mull over if you want to ask the other guys. Imagine us signing Nicolas Anelka to this side now, and imagine the impact he would have in this side now. If you got a player like Anelka when we lost him, so not like a teenager, but when we actually sold him on, imagine a player of that talent coming into this squad now. He would transform the whole forward line. Yeah.
Be like our Mbappe, wouldn't he? With that pace, the way he runs through that centre forward line, the way Mbappe does. Yeah. What about Raul Jimenez, Kris? Type of player for Arsenal?
I think pre-head injury, 100%. But I just don't think, and this is not his fault because he got class. I don't think he'll ever be quite the centre forward that he was before. I think Calvert-Lewin's probably a better fit. He's not my cup of tea personally because I think he fits an Everton sort of style, and he's there's something about him that I don't know if it would work. I would probably rather go overseas and find somebody who can do a job than Premier League already, but that's just me. I think Ollie Watkins would have been a good pickup if we'd have had the opportunity. And the boy at Brentford, Tony, is another one.
Tony. We're fan for Tony. Jerome, is there anyone out there you think would be a good fit as a replacement up top? You was dreading this question, weren't you?
Oh, it's so hard. There's not too many to choose from, are there? There's not like loads of them that you can say him. I did like the look of Edouard before he went to Palace. I don't know. This is a massive signing that they've got to make in the summer. It is absolutely huge.
Here's a different question. Do you think Arsenal should bring that player in now and hold on to Abba for that final season, letting him go on a free? Or do they sell Abba, knowing full well they're going to lose Lacazette as well, and take the risk of bringing in someone who's fresh?
I'll tell you. So my thought on it is, don't worry about all that other stuff. If you can get a top quality striker, it doesn't matter if you can get them on a Monday, a Tuesday, a Wednesday, in a week, in 2 months, in 6 months. Get them as soon as you can. If an amazing striker becomes available, like I said, Aubameyang and Lacazette, they're not here for 5 years apiece, both of them. So don't worry about that. Mm-hmm. Go out and get a great striker whenever you can, and everything else will take care of itself. But yeah, thinking of a name, thinking of the type of player is bloody hard. And I think Calvert-Lewin and Ollie Watkins, to be honest with you, they're okay, but I think their names are mentioned because there ain't too many others that we can think of. I think it's sort of like, yeah, they're all right, and so we sort of throw their names in there. But really, if we want, the number 9 of Arsenal, we've grown up on like Henry, Bergkamp, Van Persie, these, Ian Wright, these quality players. Like
you're going to say Ollie Watkins now, aren't you?
What I'm saying is that's the standard we're used to. And to be honest with you, with the competition we've got, the clubs that we're fighting against, like we need someone decent. So massive. That is a massive signing.
On that point, and I think you're spot on. By the way, there's a snobbery about some Arsenal fans, and I don't think it comes from us gentlemen on tonight. But there is this kind of this snobbery that we're the Arsenal, we should be going out and buying the next Mbappe or the current Mbappe style level forward, or something like that. One of our most popular players right now is a goalkeeper that a lot of us didn't want. Let's be honest, and I was quite happy for us to sign Aaron Ramsdale. I wasn't happy for us to pay 24 million quid for him. I'm still thinking that was a questionable decision, but mainly that was built around the fact that I thought we were signing a player as a backup, for Leno, and I thought the better deal would be keep Leno and then bring him in the summer, or ship one out and get one in, because I thought we were spending the budget we needed for a striker. But what Ramsdale has done is he's come in from, sorry to any Sheffield United fans, I doubt whether they're listening, an unfashionable club that are now in the Championship, and we're all lauding, a guy who's one of our own. And why we've taken Ramsdale to our heart is because he's come into the club, he's worked his ass off, he's got his place, he's said all the right things, he's shown a passion for the club, he's been humble, he's been honest, and he's been likable. And if you sign a player, again, we're using the Ollie Watkins, sort of metaphor here, a player like that who plays further down the league, or even a Championship striker, like when Ivan Toney broke through at Brentford, we shouldn't be above taking a bit of a punt on a player like that and saying, we're just going to make this guy our own. Olivier Giroud was a nobody when we signed him. Well, he wasn't a nobody in France, but he won the title with Montpellier. And Montpellier were, an unfashionable club. And he became a cult hero with us. So Wiltord is the same. You got it. You can't just think that we're Arsenal of 2003-04 because we're just not anymore.
Yeah. Do you know what I like? And do you know what I like in Drew too? In some ways, is the name's gone out in my head, and I must have mentioned it about 10 times this week. Is the Czech striker who we see, who don't seem to get mentioned that often. But every time I see him play, he's someone who I would love at Arsenal. He's big, he's strong, he's powerful, left foot, right foot, he's good in the air. And he seems to be one of them players that, like Kris said, that Giroud would, no one knew Giroud, who he was. And we have seen him in the Euros, shtick, but, people don't really know what he's like from there on in. I mean, I've kept an eye on him, and I think he would be perfect for Arsenal. But the big question is, what type of forward do you go for? Do you go for that, Aubameyang, Henry striker, or do you go for that big number 9, like the Sticks, like the Dzeko's, like the Olivier Giroud's? It's a difficult question, and like Jerome said, it's such an important one that's they've got to make that decision, and whether it's January or the summer, because it could sort of show where Arsenal are going to be like in the next 3-4 years.
Yeah. With the striker, I'm not sort of saying it needs to be like a big name that everyone knows, but it's just important that the person comes in and can do the job, whether it's someone from the Championship or from Real Madrid. It's just important that they've got the quality, and it'll only come from their performance. I think Ramsdale, you're right. The interviews he gave, everyone loves him, don't they? That's even before he put on a shirt. But why people love him as well is because his performances have been brilliant, and that ultimately is what's going to dictate how good the signing is.
Yeah, definitely. I think that Kris is spot on with that, and it's something that Arsenal never used to be snobs about, because we never used to buy the stars. And I think Arsene Wenger once said, "We don't buy stars, we make stars," and it's so true. And even one thing we used to do is we used to know there was talent there, but they didn't quite make it on that move. Bergkamp was one of them. We knew exceptional talent. Inter Milan didn't work. Thierry Henry didn't work. Patrick Vieira at Racing Milan didn't work. Like, all these players didn't work. And then we started to buy players that just no one knew. Some of our best players have been players that no one knew. So I would love to go back to that. And I feel like we've got a bit of that this season as well. No one knew Lukonga. No one knew Tavares. Ben White's he's known, but he's only had a season in the Premier League. Ramsdale's only 2. So I feel like we're going towards it. Tommy Ashley as well. I feel like we're going towards that, and may it continue with some absolute gems, especially in that forward position. Kris, now you're a big French football fan, and 2 of our players have gone over there at the moment. We'll get on to one in a second, but the first one I want to talk about is William Saliba. Highly regarded with a lot of people. A lot of our younger fans are angry that he's not in the Arsenal setup right now. Do you feel that the loans that he's been going on have been working for him so far?
Yeah, I do. Mainly because he's playing where he wants to be, which is in France. I've said a number of times on our podcast, on the Hybrid Squad podcast I've been on with Sophie, we had a good chat about this recently as well. He's a player who has been badly treated. Whatever sort of side of the fence you sit on with regards to the manager or the hierarchy of the club or anything to do with any of that, he was poorly treated. He wasn't kept informed. He was sold a bit of a false dream. Sure, he was brought under different characters, shall we say, who've now since departed the club. But he was bought for a lot of money with a lot of hype, and never really given a proper shot. And then was sort of brought back. Oh, no, we're going to give you a go. Played one game in the Charity Shield, and then was shipped off again. Then he was sold the dream again. Oh, you're going to come back? You're going to be part of the pre-season? You know, Arteta was in the press saying he's going to have a chance in pre-season. He didn't get a chance in pre-season. And then he was criticised by the club for turning down a move to Newcastle. I mean, I'm not being funny, but they're a shambles, you know, and they're a club I've got a lot of respect for. That it's, you know, it's a huge footballing culture up in Newcastle, and it's a proper club with proper supporters. But, you know, under the Ashley regime, I don't want any of our players up there unless they're sold, obviously, in case of Joe Willock. So no, he's gone to France. He's played very well. He had a bit of a tough weekend. He didn't have the greatest game against Lille. You know, and I noticed all the trolls come out and went, "Oh, where's the Saliba fans now?" It's one game, guys. It's one game. You know, he's an under 23 level player. You know, and how do young defenders learn? By making mistakes. So, you know, I think he still has a future at Arsenal. I know Fabrizio Romano tweeted this evening and said that Arsenal are keeping close tabs on him, and everybody's gone mental. My view on that tweet was, well, so they bloody well should be, because he's one of the most gifted central defenders in Europe right now. There's a lot of other clubs that are envious that we got him. There's a lot of other clubs that would be quite happy to take him, by the way. One of them being Real Madrid, who obviously just lost Rafael Varane. And we got to be very careful how we manage this young lad, because if we don't bring him back, then we have to sell him at top value, which you know, I worry is what we're going to end up doing. And if we do bring him back, we have to bring him back to play him, not just to blood him.
So is that 3 at the back then, Kris?
I think it has to be, or you do what a big club does, and you say, you 3 have got the positions, fight it out. The best 2 or 3 will play. If it's a 3 at the back system, you all play. If not, 2 of the 3 of you will play. And let's be honest, it's Arsenal. We're always going to have an injury, aren't we, for 6 or 7 weeks of a season? So, you know.
Do you think we're asking too much of a 19-year-old? Well, he's 20 now, but when he was, because it was last season before, do you think we're asking too much of a 19-year-old to come straight into the Arsenal centre back position and hold down a spot?
Possibly, but age is a number. Is all I would say to that. I mean, let me ask you this question: who would you rather have, the experienced Pablo Mari or the inexperienced William Saliba? I mean. You know, and that's
words
not
of damage sometimes.
Yeah, and that's not to knock Murray. You know, he did a good job in certain games last season. He hasn't had the great start to the season. Even Rob Holding, who I like as a player, the level of ability on the ball and the reading of the game, the physique. People forget Saliba's 20. He's massive. This guy has got the physique. He likes the rough and tumble. He's not a defender who doesn't like contact. He's not a defender who isn't afraid to step out with the ball and encourage a challenge. He takes risks, of course he does. But, you know, as I said on our podcast a few times, Rio Ferdinand took a lot of risks and his career turned out all right, didn't it? And he got into the West Ham side at 18, 19. He filled out and became probably one of the world's great central defenders, if not the world's great pundit. But, you know, so it's sometimes you've got to take a leap of faith. I'm happy with Gabriel and Ben White, don't get me wrong, but I would have been... And it's nothing against Ben White, genuinely, but I would have been equally happy with Gabriel and Saliba and 50 million quid spent on a centre forward in the summer.
I mean, Tony Adams was captain at Arsenal at 18, wasn't he?
There you go. Yeah, and the first thing people will fire you back at you and that with and say, "Oh, it's a different game. The game's moved on." Yeah, but John Terry, when did he break in? How old was he before he was parking in certain
teens?
Yeah, I mean, you know.
All I would say about John Terry, probably Tony Adams, is at the time they had some better players to look up to, whereas Arsenal at the time had Squadron Mustafi and Socrates. Now, it's not anything really against those two, but if you're talking about class personified, they just weren't it. They were your rough and tumble, bullish kind of defenders, throw your head on the line, whereas I think they need a better education, some of these lot. And that doesn't just go for Saliba. I think that goes for a lot of our youngsters. They don't really have too many players in the squad to look up to. Jerome, you had a quick question? You muted.
Oh.
And you left.
Having a nightmare there. God.
Having a Western Air, man.
Yeah. Western Superman. Kris, you mentioned at the beginning that he hasn't been sort of treated that well, Saliba at Arsenal, like especially that not going out on loan at the beginning of last season. I thought I think I actually mentioned it with the guys here. I thought it, you know, didn't seem at the time, but one of the biggest mistakes Arsenal could have made, or something like a stupid mistake that's easy to rectify, was not sending him out on loan. I thought that was ridiculous. And you're right, they've treated him so poorly. In the summer, Arsenal signed Ben White and they gave him Saliba's number. Now, do you read anything into that? Do you think it's nothing? Or like, what's your opinion on that?
I mean,
I don't think it's great.
Yeah, the number itself, I don't read into it. I'll be honest, because I mean, you've all seen what happens with player power with certain numbers. If you look at a certain gentleman who've winged his way back into Old Trafford in the summer, you know, it's all about the branding and players' personal choices and stuff. I don't think William Saliba would have any issue with the number being taken. I think more of the issue would be how it was done in terms of you know, you're the number 4, you're one of the starting players. Oh, by the way, we're also buying £50 million centre back. And I think if you also asked Saliba and you said to him, I had this discussion with Kev Campbell about this on another show, and he was saying, you know, I wanted to see him stay and fight for his place. And my argument is, I want to see him going out and play, and he's in European competition with Marseille in a team under one of the better managers in Europe in Sampaoli, who's got the most ferocious tactics and style of play, and it's very Bielsa in its ferocity. So Saliba will learn a lot from that, especially playing in the back three as he is at the moment. I wanted to see him play. I didn't want to see him. I don't have any issues with his mentality in the Arsenal dressing room, and I think that bleeds into the fact that he would have been quite happy to have stayed, whether he was number 4 or number 444. He would quite happily stayed and fought for his place because he backs his ability to get into the Arsenal side. And every interview he's given, he said, "Yeah, I backed my ability. I would have got game time, but unfortunately, I wasn't given the opportunity." And that's the truth. So number, I don't think is an issue, but how he was given or taken away from that number, or how he was managed, that issue that was a lot to be desired how that was done.
Yeah,
I think it was a massive mistake sending Saliba out on loan. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, but if, like, Kris said about injuries, if Ben White goes down, I'm just repeating what he said, but he's so right. Ben White goes down with an injury, or Gabriel goes down with an injury. If you're bringing Saliba in, one of the top young centre halves in European football, you're like, fine, no problem, no change. And not only that, whoever he's playing with a top class centre half. So I don't get the thinking of sending him out on loan. Obviously, they feel Mari and Holdings or Chambers is a better choice, and that worries me a bit.
I don't think it's a case of them thinking it's Mari and Holding the better choices. In my eyes, it's more of these two are my main centre backs, Gabriel and Ben White. Now, this guy is stalling his development if he just sits on the bench and waits. We've got a lack of games. We've got the least amount of games we've had for like 25 years. So sitting him on the bench and playing him in maybe an FA Cup or a League Cup game here and there is not really the answer for him to continue his development. It's just going to stagnate. And if anything, on the business side, you're going to lose money on a player like that. At least while he's at Marseille, people are going to see him. He's probably going to be a better player once he comes back, and hopefully he'll get back in the team. I'm hoping that we sell one of Holding and Mari, and then Saliba comes back in.
Can he be brought back? Can he be brought back any time, or has he got to see the year out?
Yeah, no, it's a non-recall. It's a season-long deal.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And on to go on.
I was just going to say, I think the only way he can come back is if there's an injury situation where he's ruled out for the season. But obviously, then he wouldn't play. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Might still be better than Marie, perhaps.
Yeah, that's my point. It'd be all right in hindsight what we're saying now, but in 6 games' time, and Gabriel's out for 3 months, and Holding or Mari's taking their places. I think we'll be saying something different on the podcast.
Yeah,
we have to wait and see.
I didn't mean that. Sorry, Polo. I didn't mean that. I was only joking.
The other player who's gone on loan is Matt Guendouzi. I'm going to admit, not my favourite player. I think his attitude stinks. Has that changed? I'm just asking a rhetorical question because I know it hasn't. Kris, have you seen any change in a player who may have needed to slightly change his attitude, or did you think that his attitude was right and he's just looking for the best standards?
Listen, Matteo Guendouzi is what Matteo Guendouzi is. He's a temperamental, spiky, nasty little bugger. But when he was ours, we didn't have an issue with that. And it always brings me back to the Roy Keane theory. If he's in your side, you love him. And I'm not comparing the 2 players before anyone goes after that. If he's in your side, you love him. And if he's playing against you, you hate him. Maybe Robbie Savage is a better person to use than that. He's the pantomime villain, etc. The thing that makes me laugh about Matteo Guendouzi is the British press love it. And they love to go after, every little thing and he's this, he's a bad influence there, he's a bad influence here. Matteo Guendouzi is the sort of guy who could have a fight in a lift. He just is. Right? But that's what makes him the player that he is. He is a terrier. But the thing that sort of bugs me a bit as well about some Arsenal fans, even when he was with us, is people would say to me, but what does he do? He's got a good engine. He runs around a bit. What does he do? Well, at Marseille, he's proving what he does. He adds that ability to carry the ball from deep positions. He's added huge amounts to his passing range. This is a kid who came through the PSG youth setup. He's no mug. Mm-hmm. He captained Marseille at the weekend. That's a huge thing to do. And okay, yeah, he went down. They went down 2-0 to Lille, but he is a player who is maturing. He's in the French national squad, and not just because Paul Pogba is injured like last time. He's got in this time on merit. And I've got some Arsenal fans telling me, well, yeah, but, it ain't good enough for Arsenal. Oh, okay, sorry, but Granit Xhaka is. Okay, that's fine. And let's compare the two. What's the difference between how Granit Xhaka has conducted himself on, and to the degree, maybe not off the pitch, but leaving the pitch? What's the difference? Apart from the fact you've got resale value in one, and a player that you can craft and you can mould and you can manage correctly, or a player who's set in his ways and is never going to change and is always just going to be a bit of a liability. And that's not to degrade Xhaka's ability. As much as I'm not a fan of his, he does what he does, and what he does on his game, he does very well. But Guendouzi is 22. He's got bags of ability, and if managed correctly under a manager like Sampaoli, who, again, doesn't suffer fools gladly, you're now seeing a player that we had a lot of potential under. I would have loved to have seen what Arsene Wenger would have done with a player like that, because it would have gone spectacularly wrong, or it would have gone spectacularly right. There would have been no in between. And I just think it's a shame that we sold him 10 million quid. By the way, if we sold him on the open market now, he would go for 35, 40 at the end of the season, or even now. And I just, some people say he'll end up in a lower end French team and he'll never go anywhere. The Rabiot route, if you will. I personally think if he can keep just this side of the disciplinary element, I think he will go on. And just very briefly, this whole story about, we called a teammate out on the pitch and, it's the old Guendouzi. Sorry, this team were losing. Gerson made an awful pass and was pretty wretched in that game. He had every right to call him out for being crap. And if you're a winner, and if you're a player who wants your side to win, nobody would have given a monkeys if Patrick Vieira called out Gilberto Silva for not making a tackle, or Martin Kieron called out Ray Parler for not making a tackle. But because it's Guendouzi, he's typical French. He's this, he's that. No, he's just a winner, and he called his teammate out for being crap. What's the issue?
Kris, was there an element of Arsenal just not the right team in the end for Guendouzi? I'll tell you why I say this. When he came, there was this. I was like, wow, 6-7 million. This is incredible. I think he was in the Golden Boys, wasn't he? Yeah. In the last 20. He was out there with people. He was getting lauded by, being the next, whoever. But when he came, he seemed to have changed overnight. Now, whether this was because he found two fantastic role models in Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang and Lacazette, who did nothing but mess about, play around and joke around, and maybe he sort of got involved with the wrong crowd. Maybe if there was someone at Arsenal, like Kieron said, or you said, Kris, like a Tony Adams, or a Patrick Vieira, who would have said, come on, you got to calm down, play football. But there was no one there, and maybe there are these players. There is someone like that at Marseille. So do you think there was an element of that, Kris?
I don't think it was the wrong club. I think it was and it is the wrong manager. That's the issue. Mikel Arteta does not like players with an ego. He does not like players who express themselves other than the ways he chooses. He doesn't like players that aren't his own, and he doesn't like players who challenge his authority. And unfortunately, what's the common link between Saliba and Guendouzi other than the fact they're French? Both players challenged Arteta's authority, challenged the question as, why am I not playing, or why am I not being given a chance? And, was Guendouzi a pillock at Brighton? Absolutely. Well, so was Neil Maupay, by the way. And all Guendouzi was essentially doing was fighting back in a game where we rolled over like limp biscuits in a cup of tea. He did it the wrong way. I'm not defending him. His attitude was poor. The thing in Dubai, he refused to apologise to Arteta. I'm not being funny, but is this a professional football club with adults, or is this kindergarten? Nobody tells me to apologise. If I go back in the dressing room afterwards and go, do you know what? I was a bit of a prat there. I go and apologise like a man. Now, would Guendouzi do that? I don't know, but if you're Arteta, why do you not go to the senior players? Like you said, Lacazette, who's very good with the younger players. You know, you have a little word in his show, like, and say, look, Matteo's been a pillock. Go and have a word, sort him out. You know, and I want an apology from him. That's where I stand. You go and tell him what I expect, and let him make his own decisions. Unai Emery was not a bad coach. Let's make no bones about it. It didn't work at Arsenal.
Yeah.
But under Emery, when he was given the responsibility, given the trust, he put in some of his best performances. Arteta came in, didn't like the cut of his jib, didn't like that he challenged his authority, didn't like the fact that he asked to play in a slightly different role, which a lot of people don't realise is what went on. And ever since then, he was on a hiding to nothing, and he wasn't given an opportunity because Arteta, his famous non-negotiables that are fine for William, by the way, came into play, and that was it. And he was gone. And you know, it just depends what type of footballer you want and what type of footballer you like, and how you manage the dressing room. And the biggest problem I think that Guendouzi had was he got into the Ozil clique. That was his biggest issue.
Yes.
And unfortunately,
yes.
They're all gone. And I wonder now if Arteta had just gone, right, off on loan to Hertha for a season, you come back in the summer, which is what he said he would do. You know, you get in with the new regime, which let's remember the Arsenal current squad is quite young now. I think he would have fit that dressing room now really well. The Sakas, the Smith Rowes, you know, the Gabriels, the Ben Whites. I think he would have fit that dressing room perfectly right now because he'd have had the right mixture of experience and youth. And we might have got a better player than what we're selling for 10 million to Marseille. And, you know, he may well move on from Marseille to a bigger club again.
Yes. I think
I may be slightly biased.
Just slightly, but it's all right. It's balanced. Just before you go, one more question from me. Is there any one or two players, however many you think are in France right now, that could get into this Arsenal team and make it a big difference? Realistically, please don't say Mbappe. Arsenal Twitter would say Mbappe, and if not, maybe Haaland, Lewandowski for short term.
Players in, and are we talking players just in France, or are we talking across the European games, or are we just looking at sort of Liga type of players here?
Give us Ligue A.
Okay. So it depends what you want to go for. But if you want to go for kind of youth, I mean, I could give you a very, very long list. There's a lot of players. Aurelio Tchouameni is a hugely talented midfielder at Monaco, who I think sadly will probably end up at Chelsea before long.
Yeah, Chelsea.
There's a certain number 8 who plays for Lyon, who I kind of like, who we could have got for next to nothing in the summer, and Houssem Aouar, who, he blows hot and cold, but he would walk into this team right now.
Sorry, what is because there's a lot of love for Houssem Aouar with some of the Arsenal fans. What is it about him that they like so much?
Local lads, plays, heart on the sleeve. He's got a bit of the silky skill about him. He's a player who can play multiple positions: wide, central, defensive, deep line playmaker, off the front man. He's got all the tools in his locker. He's a bit moody. There's almost a bit of Nasri without as much of the attitude in the. He blows very hot and cold. He has got a bit of a bit of an attitude on him, which is another reason why we didn't go back, because once again, Arteta is not fond of a player with a personality. So it's just to me it was a no-brainer of a deal. But I do have to quote my colleague on French Foot Weekly, Jeremy Smith, when he says that as much as I like him as a player, he does flatter to deceive, and he does go missing in some games. But watch him in the derby at the weekend. He absolutely ran that midfield for Lyon. He scored the goal. He had multiple shots on goal that were saved. He was fantastic in that game, and that's the hour you could get. In terms of other players, one completely from left field who would probably solve Arsenal's goal scoring issues right now, although once again it would never happen because he is a bit of a pillock off the pitch, is Mauro Icardi. All he does is score goals. He misses a fair few as well, I might add, but he's just a poacher, and that's all he would do. He would also probably cause a lot of issue in the dressing room, and certainly his wife would. But he's a goal scorer. And then you just go down the league. There's some players at Nice currently, some younger players coming through at Marseille. There's there's quite a few clubs in Liga that produce their own talents. I mean, I'm a Lorient fan, so we're a bit further down the league, although doing well this season. Likes of Lens. There's a lot of, they call it the League of Talents. There's a lot of young players that are coming through. Spurs have picked up Sarr from Metz, which breaks my heart because he's such a good player, and when he comes in, he'll be really good for them next season. There's a lot of talent, but you have to kind of take a bit of a gamble on taking that talent. Kasper Dolberg, another one at Nice. There's such a long list, but yeah, and they're all cheap, So I do think the French market is good for Arsenal, but only if you're willing to take a punt on a player who may or may not work out, and a young player who you're going to have to blood.
All right, Kris. Thank you very much for enjoying us. I hope you enjoyed us. Joining us. Selling myself here. That long hair. Thank you for joining us tonight. Go and follow Kris, KC Runs on Twitter. As you can see, he's got a load of knowledge. He talks sense. Even if some of the players that he was talking about I don't agree with. This is what I'm here for. Balanced argument. It's all good. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Kris.
You're more than welcome, mate. Anytime you want me, just give me a shout.
We will.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kris.
Cheers,
mate.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, mate.
See you later. Thank you. And of course, I have to say goodbye. Well, thank you, first of all.
Goodbye.
Steve Case. Yeah, goodbye. See you later. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Steve.
Cheers, Kieron. Yeah, really enjoyed tonight. Thanks, mate.
No worries. And of course, thank you for joining us tonight, Jerome Marks.
Pleasure. Cheers. Thanks.
All right. Actually, because I feel bad. Just before we go, Johnny asked a question, which I said I would answer. But I didn't want to keep Kris on for too long. So one more question, yeah? Johnny says, I would like to know what you all feel about the possibility of Thomas Partey's participation in the African Nations Cup in January. Bearing in mind Granit Xhaka's situation, how short we are in central midfield. I think I know Steve's answer. I think he answered it the other day. So start with Steve.
Yeah, I mean, is it in January?
Yeah.
So you're going to have Xhaka in the midfield. You ain't got a choice. You either buy someone in January, which I still think we should. I think we should buy these two players. Or again, what's staring us right in the face for me is that we play Martin Odegaard next to Granit Xhaka. I don't think we've got any other choice apart from those two possibilities. Go and get someone. If Thomas Partey goes, then we need someone. We can't play Lokonga and Xhaka. Mm-hmm. We can't. We play Lokonga and Xhaka, then I mean, I know this might sound about too much, but for me, we're not getting in Europe next year. We're on that edge, aren't we? In so many different situations, we're balancing on that tightrope where we just our squad is so thin that it's quite frightening. But yeah, that's what I think, John. I think we should either bring Martin Odegaard in to play next to Granit Xhaka and let Odegaard play as number 8. Or I feel that in January we will have to go and buy someone to take over from Thomas Partey.
All right. Jerome, what's your feeling on the situation? Buy in January?
I'll be happy to. Well, it depends if Xhaka's fit because he might be back by January. I wouldn't. If you buy someone, they've got to be better than what we got. Basically, I'm not about going out and signing another El Nene. Another squad player that will come in on a 4-year contract and then only play a handful of games. So happy to buy someone, but they got to be top drawer. Otherwise, I wouldn't buy anyone. That's my thoughts on it.
Pogba will be available.
Yeah, the list is actually ridiculous. Axel Witsel, I'd take Axel Witsel on a.
That's a good shout.
End of the season. Well,
that's
you
a great
say, look,
shout.
we'll pay 5 to 8 million for Axel Witsel. And you sign him up on a 2-year deal, sell Onene, and then you've got Axel Witsel fighting it out in that position for whoever. You're still upgrading Onene.
Sorry, what you got to ask yourself is how important is it for Arsenal to get in the Europa League?
Very important.
There's your question. can we afford to have another year out?
But also the thing is, how many games does Partey actually miss? I think it's only about 3 league games. So are we going to go out and sign a player because Partey's missing 3 league games? Because I think in January there's the FA Cup game.
Mm-hmm.
There might be a League Cup game as well. Like, I don't think it's not like they're missing 8 league games. It's only I think it's only a few. But I don't know.
I think it'll be one of them ones at a time we need to see. All right. Before we go on and we start going on for a ridiculous amount of time, just like to thank Johnny for joining us tonight, Russ for joining us tonight, and Danny for joining us tonight. Danny, part of the giving Kris stick the whole way through. Love that.
The pirate, Kris the pirate.
Thank you very much for joining us, Danny.
Cheers, Danny.
All right. Peace out, people. Stay safe and wash your hands.